The reason we're doing that, the cognitive overload, the way we just keep thinking and ruminating and obsessing and making lists, is to avoid pain.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation. Hey everybody, it's Jeannie. Thanks so much for joining me here again at Warriors at Work. Today I'm bringing to you a conversation with a returning guest, Mary Rauer, who's a licensed clinical social worker and registered nurse. She and I have been having lots of conversations over the last couple of weeks about how everyone is doing, how much stress there is in the world right now, how much grief there is in the world right now. And there's a lot of stimulation. So I invited her to have a conversation with me about how do we restore balance? How do we create an inner world that is happy and safe and a place where we can go to decompress, process, gain additional insight? And so we used this time to talk a lot about her expertise around frameworks and cognitive reframes, but also practical advice and strategies that we could all pull into our everyday. And so I am bringing this conversation to all of you to be in service to all of you. And I really hope that it provides some support and clarity and practical advice. Enjoy. Mary Rauer is back at Warriors at Work. So thank you. So grateful that you're here with us. So thank you again for joining us. And it's a Saturday, so you made special time to be able to do this with me. So I appreciate that, Mary.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm excited to do it.
So it really feels impossible to ignore the state of the world right now. Everywhere I turn, whether it's leaders, executives, parents, people are just telling me the same thing. They're exhausted, hypervigilant. They feel emotionally overloaded, and they feel disconnected to the world at large. And there's also just like a sense of grief in the air and a lot of stimulation and just not a lot of space to metabolize all of that. So what I want to talk about in today's conversation is this notion around strengthening our inner constitution, our inner world, and not just as like a luxury, but as a necessary cognitive skill so that we can function, expand, lead, and approach our lives in whatever way we would like to, and in sort of an optimal fashion. So where I thought we could start is from your perspective as a clinician. What are you noticing right now in terms of people's emotional and cognitive states?
Basically, what I'm noticing, Jeannie, is that most people are walking around in a survival state. They're in a state of being where they're just focused on self-preservation. And because of that, there's a lot of hypervigilance, a lot of overstimulation. There's a lot of, avoidance. There's a lot of distraction, not focusing on what's really going on.
And the word distraction really resonates. I think that's we're going to get into why we think that is, but many people say, like, I'm functioning, but I just don't feel regulated. And so can you help us to just understand what happens cognitively and emotionally when we're living in this constant state of alert, or I call it like hypervigilance?
Yeah, well, what's happening cognitively is your thinking is distorted because your thinking mechanism it's on fire. It's almost like overworking. Therefore, the whole body state is dysregulated. Your whole autonomic nervous system is not working. So if you're cognitively constantly in an anxious state and overthinking and loading yourself up with too many distractible thoughts, the rest of your body just goes through an anxiety state. So we can't function on an optimal level of executive functioning. We can't think clearly.
So you just described many people's average day. So competing priorities, you have to be more strategic, you have to be more productive with less. And then there's also so much contraction going on in the business world in terms of employment opportunities and restructures and reorgs. So there's an over-index on thinking mind, like competency-based. And what you're saying is the more stress we're putting on that, which is what's happening, the more your emotional state starts to get heightened. And also what I notice, and I'd love for your perspective on this, is so the more we're over-indexing on the thinking mind, the physical or emotional state, there you have an inability to make decisions, get into fight or flight a lot more often, have difficulty sleeping. It's like all of this overstimulation. Does that track with what you're seeing?
Exactly. Basically, what happens is when you're in a survival mechanism or trying to be self-protective, your amygdala, the part of your brain, gets activated. You're supposed to be using the frontal lobe of your brain to think clearly. So the amygdala is the part of the brain that says there's a threat. So you either do fight, flight, or freeze. Once that happens, the memory part of your brain starts to get a little bit foggy, the hippocampus, and you can't think clearly, you can't remember anything. So basically you're not thinking clearly because the activated part of your brain is dysregulating your whole body system, nervous system. So what we do as a default valve is something called cognitive overload, or we're trying to increase the cognitive bandwidth by just focusing on many, 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 many thoughts, just to avoid, because the amygdala, the part of the brain, is making us like run away. So we start getting lots of negative thoughts, fear, hyperarousal, and we can't think clearly through the executive functioning of the brain, the prefrontal part of the brain.
Wow. Okay. The other thing that I'm noticing is there's a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And personal, collective, unprocessed. What happens when grief does not get acknowledged and maybe gets buried? And and I'm guilty of this too. When I'm feeling sad or lost, or I'm having difficulty, I go to work.
Yeah.
I go to things I can control and manage and see. And I love writing things on a list. Sometimes I'll write things on a list just so I could cross them off. That's my default when I'm feeling emotionally overworked. So what happens, based on what you're seeing, when things are not getting acknowledged, or they're getting pushed down or ignored?
Well, let's just backtrack for a minute there. The reason we're doing that, the cognitive overload, the way we just keep thinking and ruminating and obsessing and making lists, is to avoid pain. So the reason we do avoidance is because we can't believe that we can tolerate the emotions that get triggered. For example, if we're lonely, being lonely is a very strong emotion to tolerate. So therefore, we go right to telling a joke. You think, what can I do to get out of the pain? So avoidance feels like it's taking care of you because it's not letting you tolerate the emotion. So therefore, the goal is to learn how to tolerate emotions.
How do you do that?
Well, that's a little tough.
Well, let me just give a little context here. So tolerating emotions, which, going again in a traditional business sense, you don't necessarily see lots of places where you have license to tolerate an emotion that does not fit into, again, more of the business competency context, but we know it's there. So a thought, having an example right now that's coming to mind is, if I am feeling tired or not connected in some way to key relationships in my life, but I have a job to do and I have to be in service or help another team function. So walk me through how we would unpack that. But I know I need to experience whatever that emotion is.
So give me an emotion to work with.
So I'm feeling disconnected and I'm feeling a little sad about that disconnection, but I have a very important business trip coming up and I've got a lot of preparation and I have to deliver on something for a company and a team, but I'm feeling sad and disconnected, let's say with my kids. What do I do?
So if you're feeling, so first of all, you have to calm the body first to be able to tolerate the emotion. It's called affect tolerance. Affect is emotion. So what you do is you do some kind of strategy to calm the body. And then once you calm the body, the thinking becomes more regulated. You can think more clearly. So for example, remember I said to you, if you're feeling sad, that's still activating the part of your brain that wants you to make you run away. So therefore you have to activate another part of the brain, the temporal lobe, to get yourself in a calmer state. So that's either repetitive. Temporal lobe is we call the God spot, the meditation spot, where you can actually shift back into a calmer state by repetitive tasks. Actually, making lists is one of the ways we do it, which the list helps you calm yourself down. Beta waves, alpha waves, music is a temporal lobe, writing, journaling, reflective listening, any calming binaural sounds, Tibetan bowls, anything that's going to be repetitive. Another thing we do is the butterfly hug, which is just an EMDR technique where you slowly just calm the body. So once you stop the body from being overreactive, you're calming it, then the front part of your brain, the executive function, is able to come back into action, and you can think differently.
I would imagine that's also how like you said, the butterfly, the tapping, Tai Chi does there's a lot out there about tapping and activating other parts of the body too, because it's an interesting thought where in overwhelm, if panic starts to surface or just a general sense of anxiety, I think what you're talking about is also another opportunity to ground, get present, and be here. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, a lot of times a panic thought or more of an episode might surface, or it's a general sense of anxiety. And so any technique to calm the body provides space for the emotion to be. Is that right?
Yes, the emotion, yes, exactly, because the emotion starts to shift and slow down as the body starts to get a calmer sense and can think more clearly.
What's so interesting about this is, so my brain is going through like an inventory of different people, different experiences that I'm noticing, and people love distractions. They love to go to other places and experiences instead of dealing with what's in front of them. So why is that?
Why is that? Well, give me make up a scenario.
So let's say I am somebody that has to work 7 days a week. I'm looking to become a partner of an organization, and I just don't feel happy at home, but I know that if I have success in my career, that'll make me feel good. That'll make me feel accomplished. So if I'm doing that, and if you look at the society as a whole, right, we over-index on social media, we'll scrolling, we'll do some shopping, we'll look at stories and Netflix programs and things that create a sense of escapism. Why is that all because we just don't want to deal with the emotions?
No, we don't know how to deal with the emotion, and the emotion becomes emphasized. It becomes it seems huge, seems overwhelming.
Okay.
But an emotion is just a feeling and a state. So if the body's in a state of hyperarousal and can't figure out what to say, what to think, and then the emotion seems overwhelming, you distract. If you're really in an anxious state and you don't want to feel something, one of the techniques is you can picture something, a focal point, and look at it. And as you're looking at the focal point, expand your peripheral vision. It happens to me right now. And the minute you do your peripheral vision, you're activating your vagus nerve, and there's an immediate calming down of the body.
So if I look straight ahead, and then now I expand my vision, I start to look peripherally. Is that right?
Yes, and just breathe 1 or 2 breaths. It just drops.
That's wild.
That's a very quick vagal tone. That's a vagal toning exercise to be calm. And then you can reassess the emotion, really label the emotion, and then do 2 cognitive techniques to cope with the emotion, which I can get into now if you want me to.
Yes, please.
So let's say you have an emotion, you're fearful and you don't want to deal with it, and you keep distracting and watching too many series of Netflix. Calm the body and then reassess the emotion, fear, loneliness, anger, whatever it is. Okay. So then you're identifying that emotion. And at that moment, you're able to look at it differently, which is, what's the assessment? Okay. This situation seems out of my control. I don't think I can handle the feeling. And then you do something which is you link up a positive belief, such as, I want to be able to handle it, or I want to be able to work with this 7 days a week I have to work, but yet I have these emotions about it. Okay. And then you want to link up a positive emotion, which is, I can handle it, or I can figure out a way. So that's called cognitive restructuring. If you restructure your negative thought to a positive thought, you're restructuring the way you can see a situation, and it brings the anxiety down.
Okay, let's try this out. What if I have a really toxic boss, or I'm in a really tough executive function, my peer set, everybody's on their own agendas. I'm not in a safe company environment. How do I do that?
You reassess it and you think, is it really, am I not safe? Is there anything I can do to create safety? Am I really in danger? Which is called reality testing. What is the reality of my lack of safety in this situation?
Okay. What is my reality? Okay. So, right. And now, what if it's just simply I am new to an organization? It's a tough place for me to navigate. I haven't quite figured out what the system is here. It's kicking up my sense of imposter syndrome. How do I do that cognitive reframe like you're talking about?
You do another way to do it is called the Socratic method, which is a ladder system, which is a way you think through a situation. You start with, the fear, the threatening thought. I'm new to this organization. I don't have a way of regulating myself yet. What's the worst thing can happen? And then you answer it. What's the worst thing can happen?
I make a mistake and I'm embarrassed.
Okay, I get embarrassed. Okay, if I'm embarrassed, I can't handle the feeling. What's the worst thing can happen?
I will lose respect for those that I'm trying to gain some momentum with.
And if I lose respect, then the next step, the ladder down is, and if I lose respect, then what can I do to help myself with that situation?
I could go easy on myself and accept the fact that I'm in a new environment and I'm going to make mistakes.
I'm going to make mistakes. Exactly.
But what's the default? What do we typically see? Right? What we typically see is people will over index on too much confidence, too much cockiness. Mm-hmm. So it's command, control, dominate, or they become more of a target. They shrink in. And they put themselves in less of a risk situation. So I'm a smaller target. You can't see me. And then the feedback will start with, you're really not saying much in the meetings. Or they're perfectly fine, but they're interpreting the environment as if it's either a threat or they're a target.
Then you do a reality check. Is it really a threat? Am I really a target? You do a reappraisal, a reassessment, a reevaluation of it. And then you just if you calm your body, you can think more clearly of a positive way to see the situation.
Well, what's interesting about what you're talking about here too, which is it's another thing that I think about, because really what we're talking about is like, how do you create agency anytime in any situation so that you can go back again to how do I keep my inner world peaceful and calm and the respite that I need to go back to. It's a very, very interesting thing. And I think the number one thing is you have to have awareness to know where you are, to know what's happening. Is that a common thing where people don't have the self-awareness to know that they're swinging?
Absolutely. What happens is it's all about internal and external control. When we don't have awareness, we're letting the locus of control, our life, be governed by external factors. Yes. So we're walking around responding, reacting, overreacting, fearful, afraid, distractibility. When we develop a locus of control within ourselves, basically, then we have a strength and ability to handle pretty much any situation. So the goal is developing internal locus of control.
Locus of control. I've never heard that term before.
Oh, Bandura, it's very famous cognitive strategy. Yeah.
Can you say more about it?
It's just being able to go with, that's what I'm saying when I talk about going within and being able to believe that I can handle whatever comes up. And that it's like building an internal muscle, an internal strength where you walk around totally self-reliant and self-resilient.
Mm. Self-reliant and self-resilient. Describe resilience for me in your words.
The ability to take feedback, the ability to tolerate, frustrations, tolerance. It takes taking any energy that comes towards you and being more like a rubber band, be able to be bounced back from it and not crumble.
Mm. And how is that impacted when you are over focused on your prefrontal cortex and your executive thinking mind?
When you're over functioning, well,
Yeah. So when you are, again, I characterize it as thinking mind. So like when I'm in this high competence, high pressure, high stress, must produce, how do I get to a place of resilience? Because that's usually the first thing that goes, because then I start taking things personally, or I'm getting overly emotional.
Right. Because the brain and the body have to work together at the same time. So the way you do it is you have to anchor the body, be aware of the body sensations while the thinking is going on. So if someone's giving you feedback and you want to be resilient, you have to be in a body calm state to take it so you don't crumble. So that's when we do all the techniques like anchoring the body, somatic interweaves, grounding, all the things you hear about, they really work. But at the same time, so you're calming the body, vagal tone, look at something, calm the body, reassess the appraisal, and then get the body into a state where it's calm enough that both systems can take the feedback.
I just took a deep breath when you just said that. And is there more that you think when you think of additional frameworks? Because we hit on a bunch of things right now, but I'm thinking like brass tacks, those that are like taking notes here, like they want to have more agency. Yes, this all sounds, this resonates for me. This is me. Like where do we go? Like what would be the first thing? So we did some of the looking and taking in more information. We did some EMDR techniques. What else should we be thinking about around taking agency and going back into that inner world?
Well, first of all, you need to have a repertoire of things you do daily on an internal mechanism way of functioning that makes you feel calm. I mean, I'm sure you do it. We work out, everyone talks about mindfulness and meditation and walking, but all that is doing is getting the alignment of the brain and the body at the same time to be synchronized. So there should be a 5-minute routine every morning of the strengthening the body and strengthening the mind. That really works when you follow that.
Okay, so what happens if I don't have 5 minutes and I don't have the discipline to do 5 minutes, but I know I need to build up my inner world. I want more agency over my life. Where does it begin?
You could literally take 5 steps into the kitchen with a grounding technique. We call it anchoring. When you take your body and as you walk, you anchor the body as if an anchor is pulling you down into the ground. Or you sit in a chair and for 1 minute, you let your body sink to the point where it's just relaxed. So that really works.
Okay, so taking some thoughtful steps with breathing, sitting, sinking in your chair. What else? What about like if it's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, I'm in this really challenging boardroom dynamic and there's all of this stuff, but I want to keep my agency and again, my inner world calm. What do I do?
First thing is label the affect, identify the emotion. I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. I'm fearful. I think that someone's going to, take my job. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. Okay. Calm the body, reassess the thought associated to the emotion, and the emotion shifts. What's the worst thing that can happen? I lose my job. That's a horrible thought, but you have to go to what's the worst thing that can happen. So calm the body to assess the emotion and label the emotion.
Calm the body to assess the emotion. Okay. What about, and gosh, that works in every single situation. I'm like trying to think of where would it be a problem? Well, when you think about you've been doing this for a very long time, and I know you're a registered nurse by training, and I also know that you're a deeply spiritual person. So
Mhm.
you believe in what's kind of beyond in front of us.
Mhm.
So what are some results that you're seeing in your practices right now? I know a big portion of your practice are business people, which is why this is so front and center for you. But I'd love to
Mhm.
hear some success stories of what you're noticing, how people are making shifts as they're pulling in these techniques.
Well, I see people taking the path which is if they make a conscious effort to remember to do these things. It's not like as if it's just going to jump in when you're in the situation. They actually have a framework and a path and a actual, way of de-escalating themselves when they're in crisis. Being a trauma therapist too, I deal a lot with crisis every day, whether it's traumatic crisis to the body, to the mind, or actually in a workplace. So how do you stabilize, restore, and reassess and re-equalize yourself when you're in a threatening situation?
Okay. So we are also, wanted to just clarify this too. When we're saying inner world, you gave some really good examples of how people are applying this framework and the freedom that they're gaining as a result of this and having
Mhm.
much more of a sense of self.
Mhm.
And what you and I are using the term inner world, right?
Mhm.
I know what I mean when I say it. I
Mhm.
think of it as how do we shut down all these external factors using some of your cognitive reframes is a really smart way.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
doing this on purpose, moving
Mhm.
you from external to internal.
Mhm.
So when I say inner world, I think of it as where's the place I go to decompress, shut down, and be honest with myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
How do you characterize inner world?
The inner world is the ability to shut down the world, first of all, and then have an accurate, honest appraisal of how you can rely on yourself and a safety net. Basically, it's being able to be safe, and you're safe only if you have predictability. And when you have predictability, you have choice. So it's like, you know, I have no one to rely. I have other people to rely on, but I need to rely on myself first. What's missing within me to tolerate going forward? And if I do, who can I rely on for predictability? Can I hire someone? Can I use a coach, a family member, a teammate? Or if I need a resource to get me through it, what am I missing? What resources am I missing in
Mm.
my life that I need to help me self-regulate and rely on myself?
And would you say that those that are sitting down in front of you for the very first time are asking themselves all those questions?
No.
So how does one end up with Mary Rower?
They end up finding out that I'm pretty direct and I come up with a lot of effective strategies. And, I have people actually do the work with me in the office. We do a lot of in vivo, exposure to threatening situations,
Mm.
but very big on developmental resources. What did you miss growing up in your life or in other jobs that you can't bring to the forefront that we can work on building? Because you can always build resources.
That's brilliant. That's, I think, a big piece that's missing
Mm-hmm.
is people are moving very quickly through their career. Sometimes they're not even awake while they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And an event happens that causes pause, or they start having physiological responses that cause, pause or something more dire. And I think what you're characterizing is there was something missing in the development that's causing this experience that they're having.
Exactly. Whether it's nurturance or guidance or ability to ask for help, ability to receive help, or ways to creatively bring in other people to help you. It's a lot of things, and they're all, even to get even deeper. I mean, each developmental phase of life, there's certain tasks you have to master in order to move to the next level. A lot of people come in with missing developmental areas of their life. A parent died, or a parent got divorced, or you failed out of high school. So there's resources that have to match each age, and then when you put them all together, if you have a pretty full set, you're pretty good. But nobody has a full set.
Right. Wow. That's a huge unlock. You use the word help, and that's a theme that I'm seeing is people don't want to ask for help. And it's not that they don't want to offer help, but they're so distracted by the demands of their time. They're mentally spent. They have nothing else to give. And I just saw a theme where that wasn't happening. I saw a theme of tremendous help and service. And a lot of it was more around how many people are struggling with employment, current and new opportunities, that it's just becoming really hard for people to land in new places. And it's causing so much churn
Mm-hmm.
on their inner world. Like, am I enough? Do I know what I'm doing? Um, is this ever going to be okay? Am I ever going to feel happy and satisfied? Will I ever find another job where I feel happy and seen and supported? And it's
Mm-hmm.
causing so much stuff. But I saw this theme where, wow, so many people were really stepping forward and offering help. But I see so many people that are afraid to ask for help.
Yeah,
So what's that about?
because asking for help often creates a level of shame. And
Mm.
shame is very disinhibiting. Shame is innate. I mean, it's one of the 9 innate emotions. And
What do you mean non-innate emotions?
there's 9 innate emotions, shame, excitement, joy. Anger is not one. It's like despair, disgust. They're innate.
Mm.
And shame is one. And shame is one of the biggest emotions that I love to work with because, from the spiritual perspective, you have to teach people self-compassion. But that's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, first we work with the shame. Like 9 is where you self-compassion teaching. Shame, you say, okay, you're feeling shame. You don't want to ask for help. Someone's offering it. You're feeling it. Your emotions, your body gets flushed. You can't talk. So then you go to your vagal tone. You calm your body down. You think, is there really something to be ashamed about? Even if you still feel it, you either reach back to a time when you felt shame and you remember someone helped you. And if you don't have that, then you have to figure out a way that you would. Another way to do it is to say, if you have a child, if your child was in this situation, they felt ashamed to ask for help, what advice would you give them? So,
Shame's a big word. Oof.
but shame
That's
gets
not a
triggered.
word that people will say.
No, I'll label it for them. No,
You're
don't.
helpful like that.
Yeah, it's like, I think you're feeling. Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean, I know Brene Brown talks a lot about that in her research, but that's heavy, but I think it is a very common culprit.
Well, shame's the emotion. The schema, the domain that it gets triggered when you don't want to ask for help is vulnerability.
Okay.
So people don't like to be vulnerable. So vulnerable is a very strong emotion that makes you feel like you're just going to fall apart. It's all like a big cycle.
Yeah. So what you just shared in this conversation was so interesting. I was particularly struck by the developmental piece too around what's missing. That makes so much sense. And I would love for you to end the conversation with, if there's anybody listening right now that's feeling dysregulated, they're scattered, they're quietly grieving, they're feeling afraid, whatever it is, like, what's one place you would invite them to begin?
I would invite them by what I said before, which is calming the body in any way you can. We know the most basic breathing, but I think the most basic one that works for pretty much everybody is when you anchor. All you have to do is drop for 1 minute. Drop yourself into the chair, anchor the body, relax the body in any way you can.
Mm. Relax the body.
Relax the body. That's the one technique.
Mm.
And then once the bodies react, then the next technique is to take the thought and reassess the thought. So the thought is, I'm anxious. So you calm the body. Then you say, I'm in danger because what's going on in the world or what's going on in the workplace. And then the reality of a reassessment from a calm body, let me correlate that. Activated body, it's the fight or flight syndrome back here, the amygdala. Body's calm, you're right back into prefrontal cortex. You're thinking clearly. Am I really in danger?
Mm. Mm. And
Or
then
what? Or if I'm not in danger, then what is the fear? What am I afraid of? And whatever the sentence is, you do a cognitive interweave, or you do something called a reframe, which is, I'm in danger. I'm not in danger today. I'm not in danger this moment. I'm not going to lose my job this second. It's just a reframe. Calm the body and reframe.
Mm. And then how do you move to action then? So you've done all of that to calm, reframe. How would I get back into action?
Okay, so you want to activate the body at that point. So then that's all the thinking. Okay. So once you reassess and reevaluate, okay, then the action plan is actual physically taking a physical something, whether you're writing or moving or speaking, some behavior. You always link an emotion to a behavior.
Okay.
So I have a more positive emotion, which was, well, at least I can try to ask for help. You ask for help. Well, at least I can think about making the call. You make the call. At least I can, it's just link the emotion to doing something that's going to move the task forward.
Okay. I love that. It's like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Calm, think, reshift, move.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I took a full page of notes.
Okay.
Different ideas.
Okay.
And thoughts, and I really appreciate you just always stepping forward and offering your wisdom. And it's so appropriate to where we are in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thanks again. All right.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.